What if the person you loved most, the one you trusted, married, dreamed with, was not only your soulmate but your blood? This is not a fairy tale. This is not romance. This is a truth carved in scars, hidden in papers, whispered in confessions, proven in blood. And once it begins, you will not look away. The wedding day. The day she had waited for her entire life. A day drenched in white lace, trembling laughter, and the kind of happiness that feels stolen from a dream. She was radiant. Every step, every smile, every glance toward the man who now stood beside her felt like destiny fulfilled. The vows had been spoken. The rings exchanged. The applause still echoed in her ears like distant thunder. And then silence. Hours later, the guests gone, the music faded, the hall emptied into memory. She sat alone, her gown pooling like a ghost at her feet. A photo album lay before her. The story of the day told in frozen stills. Page after page, smiles, kisses, dancing. The warmth of celebration sealed forever in glossy prints. Her fingers moved slowly, reverently, over each image. This was her proof of happiness. Her evidence that love was real. Until one photo. She stopped. Her hand trembled. The groom, her husband. His arm curled around her waist in the picture. His smile broad, unshaken. But her eyes fell not on his face, nor his joy, but on something else. A mark. A scar. Thin, jagged, undeniable. A scar burned into his skin, captured forever by the lens. Her breath caught. Her chest tightened. The scar was not just familiar. It was known. Intimately known. A memory rose, uninvited. A summer long ago. Children running through fields. A fall. A wound. Her small hands covered in someone else's blood. And the boy. The boy who had cried out. The boy who had worn that very scar. Her vision blurred. The photo in her hand grew heavy as though weighted with history. This was no coincidence. This was truth. The man she had married was not a stranger brought by fate. He was a shadow of her past. He was blood. Her blood. The laughter of the day curdled inside her. The music, once joyous, now replayed in her mind like a dirge. And she understood. In one photograph, in one scar, in one unbearable heartbeat, that the love of her life was family. Still she sat there, silent, trembling, clutching the photograph that had become her undoing. Her husband called from the next room, his voice calm, loving, ordinary. But she did not answer. The album closed. And with it, the door to innocence. The night stretched long, and in the quiet she whispered only to herself. Some scars never heal. And some truths should never be found. The night did not end. It only stretched, deeper and darker, until even the walls seemed to breathe. She tried to sleep, but the scar would not release her. Behind her closed eyes, the photograph returned again and again, as though the image had been branded onto her very soul. Her husband slept beside her. His breath steady, unbroken, unknowing. Each rise of his chest was a reminder that truth lay inches away, hidden in his skin. And still she did not speak. Because how does one give voice to such a horror? What words could carry the weight of a secret that destroys both love and bloodline? The hours bled slowly. The clock ticked, and with every second she felt herself pulled backward into memory. Childhood. The summer of heat and dust. Running through fields too wide to measure. Her laughter chasing his. Then the accident. The fall from the tree. The gash along his arm. The blood, red and startling, pooling beneath the sun. She had held his hand. She had wept for him. She had promised he would be fine. And now, years later, on her wedding night, she realized the promise had never left. It had only followed her into the very man she called husband. The silence became unbearable. And then, a sound. Paper. The shuffle of cloth. Something slipping. She turned. On the floor beside his suit jacket, something had fallen. A document. A folded sheet. Its edges worn, its ink faded by time. She lifted it with shaking hands. Her eyes traced the letters. A birth certificate. Her husband's name scrawled across it in official type. But it was not the name that froze her. It was the surname. The surname of her estranged father. A name she had buried years ago when he abandoned her mother. A name she swore never to speak again. And yet here it was, carried in her husband's pocket, worn like a ghost that refused to leave. The paper drifted in her hand. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The scar had been proof enough. But this was undeniable. This was blood revealed in ink. She sat on the edge of the bed, the certificate pressed against her chest, her body shaking. Every breath felt like betrayal. Every heartbeat felt like a wound. The silence thickened, wrapping around her throat. Her husband stirred in his sleep, murmuring her name softly, lovingly, obliviously. And she broke. A sound escaped her lips, not quite a sob, not quite a scream, but something in between. A sound of a soul tearing apart. She stumbled into the bathroom, the paper still in her grip. The mirror caught her reflection. White dress crumpled, mascara smeared, eyes hollow. She did not recognize the woman staring back. And then her mother's voice. Not in the room. Not alive. But echoing in memory. Whispered warnings from years ago. A night when her mother wept and spoke of secrets too dangerous to name. A night she dismissed as grief, as madness. But the truth had been there all along. And now, in the bathroom mirror, she finally heard it. The mother's confession, buried in whispers, echoing louder than ever. Her legs gave way. She sank to the floor. The certificate slipped from her hands. The scar burned in her mind. The veil of lies unraveled thread by thread. She crawled back to the wedding album. Page after page. Every photograph, once joyful, now became sinister. The rings, 2 circles bound by metal, mocked her. She saw them not as symbols of love but as chains of blood. The toast replayed in her memory. The best man's laughter, the drunken joke. Don't they look alike? Everyone had laughed. Everyone, except her. At the time she thought nothing of it. But now, every laugh sounded like an accusation, every smile like a mask. She turned another page. The first dance. Her veil trailing like smoke, his hands firm at her waist. She saw it differently now. The dance of love had become the dance of death. Every twirl, every step, was a march toward revelation. And she remembered. At the very end of the song, she had leaned close to whisper something. Something she had not even meant to say aloud. 2 words caught between breath and thought. We're the same. He had smiled, misunderstanding. He had thought it poetry. But she had known, even then, what her heart refused to accept. The walls closed in. The silence was unbearable. The truth, undeniable. And still she did not speak it aloud. Because to speak it was to end everything. Instead, she sat in the dark, the photo album before her, the certificate at her side, the memory of her mother whispering in her ears. And she waited. For morning. For courage. For the storm she knew could not be stopped. Because some nights do not end. They only deepen. And some secrets, once uncovered, will never let you sleep again. Morning came. But it did not bring light. The sun rose, yet the house remained heavy, cloaked in silence. She had not slept. She had only stared, at the scar, at the birth certificate, at the album of smiles that now cut like knives. Her husband woke beside her, his voice warm, his touch tender. And she felt herself fracture. Because how could love and blood be the same? How could the man who gave her joy also be the mirror of her father's sins? Days passed. But the secret stayed. It sat in her chest like stone, pressing, crushing, waiting to escape. Until the doctor's office. A routine test. Nothing extraordinary. A simple preparation before they dreamed of children. She gave her blood. So did he. The nurse smiled, the machines hummed, the papers printed. And then silence. The doctor's eyes lingered too long. The words stumbled. The truth fell like glass shattering. Your markers are identical. Your DNA is the same. The room spun. Her husband laughed nervously, shaking his head. A mistake, surely. But she knew. The scar. The name. The whispers. The photo. Science had spoken. And science does not lie. She walked out of that room hollow. Her husband reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Not from anger, but from grief. Because grief was all that was left. At home she searched. Through boxes. Through drawers. Through the shadows of memory. And then she found it. A letter. Yellowed with age. Her father's handwriting curling across the page. A confession he had never spoken. A warning she had never heard. There was a child. The one I left behind. One day you may meet him. One day you may not know until it's too late. Beware. Her hands shook. The ink bled as her tears fell. The warning had come. But far too late. That night the reception hall replayed in her mind. The toast, the laughter, the veil torn by the storm. The fragments of mirrors breaking, each shard reflecting a truth she could no longer run from. And then, the dance. Their first. Their last. She remembered leaning in, her lips brushing his ear, her voice barely a whisper. We are the same. He had pulled back, confused, his smile faltering. She had said it again. Louder. Clear. We are the same. Blood of my blood. His body stiffened. The music slowed. The crowd froze. And then he collapsed. Not from her words alone, but from the unbearable truth they carried. The love of his life. His sister. Gasps filled the hall. The dancers halted mid-step. The band's instruments hung silent. She knelt beside him, calling his name, shaking him, begging him to rise. But his eyes were open and yet gone. One truth. One scar. One dance. One death. The veil of lies had been torn apart, and nothing remained but silence. Now, she sits alone. The album beside her. The letter burned at the edges by candle flame. The photographs no longer hold joy. Only ghosts. Her reflection in the glass is broken, fractured into fragments of the woman she once was. And her voice, once full of laughter, now only a whisper to herself. Some loves are blessings. Some loves are curses. And some truths should never be found. And now, dear listener, I leave you with a question. How well do you know the ones you love? What secrets lie beneath the scars, the names, the bloodlines you never thought to question? Sometimes the truth hides in plain sight. In a photograph. In a letter. In a scar you thought you had forgotten. And when it comes, when the truth finally comes, will you be ready to face it? Because love can be beautiful. But love, when twisted by blood, can also destroy. Choose carefully who you let into your heart. Because sometimes, the past is closer than you think. This was not just a wedding. It was a revelation. It was a reminder that secrets buried in silence always claw their way to the surface. And sometimes, love itself is the cruelest lie of all. If this story left you breathless, if you want more haunting tales of love, betrayal, and the truths that shatter families, stay with us. There are more stories. Darker stories. Stories that demand to be told. Subscribe now, because the next secret may be the one you carry.